Good morning. Welcome to the King's Report News Hour for the 13th day now in the 10th month, 16th year of Chungi. Let's get right on our sojourn around the kingdom. Right now in Chongpyeong, Tennessee, they've got some rain going on, light rain, it says, and that's going to continue for at least 60 minutes. 40 degrees is the temperature, getting up to 44 today, a couple of morning showers. Otherwise, cloudy and chilly. And tonight, cold with low clouds, low of 29. In Father's hometown, it is very cold. It is right now clear and 10 degrees Fahrenheit, and tonight getting down to 3 degrees above zero on the Fahrenheit scale. Let's see, that's 29, 18. That's close to 20 degrees below zero on Celsius, but I'm not sure of the math right now, but it's between 15 and 20 degrees below. Um, and then tomorrow, a high of 15 degrees on the Fahrenheit scale, frigid with plenty of sunshine. And then in the Chunungun Palace, at the Chunungun Palace in Northeast Pennsylvania, they got some snow going on right now. Snow is going to be falling for another hour at least. 29 degrees is the current temperature. Wet snow accumulating 2 to 4 inches. Snow can make roads and sidewalks slippery. Wow, okay, that's the big headline of the day. Okay. High of 34 today and tonight, overcast, slushy areas and standing water will freeze. Yes, that's right. I'm sure people who live in Pennsylvania are aware of that. 23 degrees for a low tonight. Down in Texas, where they don't have as much experience with snow, 31 degrees right now and clear. Even it's below zero in Texas. Wow. Okay. Getting up to 51 though today, cool with plenty of sunshine. And then tonight, clear and chilly, low of 35. Meanwhile, let's look at the Suncheon Palace in Korea. Currently 41 degrees, mostly cloudy and colder, low of 20 degrees tonight. Tomorrow, mostly sunny and colder, breezy in the afternoon, high of 37. And then in Japan, at the Gunma Palace, it's got 54 degrees right now, mostly clear skies, turning cloudy tonight, low of 44. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy, high of 61. Guangzhou, Guangdong province in China, currently 71, cloudy, overcast with a shower in spots, low of 64 tonight. Tomorrow, high of 71 after a cloudy start. Sun returns, breezy and less humid. Okay, let's take a look at Father's Word. Let's see here. We are in the book on the true parent, or true parents, depending on whether you want to translate it as singular or plural. Okay. Um, this is chapter 6 in the book on the true parent. And chapter 6 is titled The True Parent and I, or True Parent and Us, actually, is the literal translation. But I think probably, in English, you might say more likely to put it in the singular, True Parent and I. And then within chapter 6, we are in section something or other, which 4, section 4. And then within section 4, we are in the subsection 6. So chapter 6, 4.6. And there's an interesting title here for this subsection 6 of chapter 6.4. Op is a Buddhist word, and it is the ob is the word that is translated into English as karma, or I guess it's not a translation, is it? It's perhaps that's the original Sanskrit word. But anyway, the Chinese translation of that Sanskrit word is up, up. As in up down. Well, kind of similar to up down, yes. Um, and the title says that the bond with true parents, or the bond with the true parent, or let's put it in the plural. The bond with true parents is faithful karma, faithful or 숙명적인 the karma of fate, I guess. Okay, very interesting. Anyway, in the first sentence there below that, 우리 인간은 100% 어리석은 자리에 서 있지만, so we human beings 100% stand in the position of foolishness. We are fools, right? But there's a but. 100% 이상 지혜로운 하나님이 친구가 되고, but God, who is more than 100% wise, becomes our friend. 친구가 되고, our friend. 뭐 하는 영계의 선조들이 and the ancestors in the uh, eternal spirit world, 나의 동반자가 되고 후원 부대가 되어 있습니다. Are my colleagues, and they're in this case, the my is not referring to Father himself; it's a general my, okay, meaning you and I and everybody. Are my colleagues and my supporting Buddha, supporting what's it's kind of a anyway supporters. Let's not overthink it. Supporters are my supporters. Um, 그런 것을 생각할 때 고맙다는 것입니다. So when we think that way, we are grateful. I am grateful. We are grateful. 선생님은 일선에서 모험의 자리, 고리앗 앞에 다윗이 나설 때 그 기분을 참 잘 압니다. Father, he refers to himself in the third person. So 선생님은 or teacher or teacher, I think is the best way. Okay. So anyway, Father is very familiar with the position of standing in the front line, and in the position of 모험의 adventure, 모험의 모험의 and knows very well the feeling of David when he faced Goliath. 당당하다는 겁니다. Brave. 하나님이 보호하사 전백승할 수 있다는 것입니다. God protects us, and so we can win 100 battles. 치명 내가 내가 갈라지지 않는다 하는 마음을 가지고 살다 보니 진짜 그렇게 됐다 이겁니다. So I've lived with the feeling that if I strike, you will be split open. You'll be split open. I will not be split open. And I live with that kind of idea, with that spirit, and that is the way it has become, in fact. Okay. All right. So yes, our relationship with True Father is faithful karma. All right. Let's see what is going on, and I was expecting that President Trump would attack Venezuela uh, before Thanksgiving, but he did not. But he's continuing to ramp up the pressure, and he told, of course, Maduro over the weekend to save himself and his family to get out of Venezuela, and now even Putin now, who is supposed to be sort of not an ally so much, but at least a friend of Venezuela, is telling Russians to get out of Venezuela. And he's doesn't seem to want to get involved in this situation. So he's saying, "Hey, let's stand aside here and let the U.S. do what they want to do." So anyway, on Monday, President Trump held talks on Monday with top advisors to discuss the pressure campaign on Venezuela, among other topics. The official, speaking on condition of anonymity, said the Oval Office meeting included senior members of Trump's national security team. No details immediately available, but we're going to write this article anyway. That's the thing, when you're a journalist, sometimes you have to write an article because everybody wants to know about something, but you don't have any information, but you just go ahead and write the article anyway. Okay. Anyway, let's see what they say. The session came as Trump ratchets up pressure on Venezuela over what the U.S. says are drug shipments emanating from that country. And he confirmed on Sunday that he had spoken to Maduro, uh, but he didn't provide any details of the conversation. And been weighing Venezuela related options to combat what it has portrayed as Maduro's role in supplying illegal drugs that have killed Americans. And Maduro himself has denied having any links to the illegal drug trade. U.S. forces in the region have focused on counter-narcotics operations. Reports of looming action have proliferated in recent weeks as the U.S. military has deployed forces to the Caribbean, meaning amid worsening relations with Venezuela. Well, like I said, he's brought all those forces to the Caribbean near Venezuela, and basically he's in a position now where he um, either has to attack or show weakness, by withdrawing, and he can't do that, and so basically now he has to perform some sort of attack. We don't know what that's going to be. So we'll continue to watch that and see how that develops. Now this is very concerning. But before I go to this NATO article, but before I go to that one, let me just give an update on the Hak Jahan's situation. Yesterday, probably many of you already know from the information that the Family Federation is putting out on X and so forth that yesterday, December 1st, was the first hearing in Hak Jahan's actual trial. Now, the trial system here is very different from the U.S. Um, when the U.S. Family Federation sued Sanctuary Church to try and stop us from using the Tongyo symbol, right? Claiming that they own the copyright and that we were not allowed to use it. That and also their attempt to uh, register the English word Tonyuguk as their exclusive exclusive what do you call it, brand, or anyway their exclusive property. We fought with them for 7 years, 2015 to 2022. September 2015 to about what? September 2015 is when they applied to register Tonyuguk as their exclusive property. And then 22, or around May or June, I think, finally, the district court's decision was finalized because the Family Federation chose not to appeal to the appeals court. But during the 7 years, we never saw the inside of a courtroom. Right? The lawyers had meetings with the judge. I think by Zoom though. There was no real what you would think of, like on TV or movies about, courtroom drama. There was nothing like that. But in Korea, it's very different because everything in Korea happens in the courtroom. Actually, it's the opposite. Um, and so, for what we would consider to be deposition of witnesses, for example, happens in the courtroom. There is no deposition of witnesses outside of the courtroom. It happens in the presence of the judges. Um, and so so this is a series of hearings that take place over months, and it can go on for years sometimes, depending on the situation. Anyway, December 1st was the first of those hearings, and the nature of the hearing was pretty much similar to I guess, an arraignment in the U.S., um, which is strange a little bit because she's already been in jail for what, 70 days, about 10 weeks or 2.5 months. And finally, she's gotten to the arraignment. The habeas corpus concept is not so strong here. So, anyway, basically, she went to the court. The judge asked her whether she wanted to plead guilty or anyway, and she said that she wanted to plead innocent, not guilty. She wanted to plead not guilty. And uh, I reported previously that there was I think last week, a request for bail was filed by the defense, and arguments on that were heard, but the court did not rule on that. Um, but also, it's different from arraignment also because at least one witness was uh, shall we say deposed, or I don't know. One witness testified. I guess that's the word to say. One witness did testify, and this is the witness. This is a person who uh, deals with the well, within the family federation, who deals with the money on the accounting side. And this person testified that no funds uh, could be moved without Hak Jahan's approval. She's been saying, the defense has been saying that, oh, and this is what they said also yesterday, that, this was all Yoon's doing, Yoon, the world mission director, uh, former now, because I don't know, he's no longer with them. Um, but this accounting person testified that no funds could move without Hak Jahan's direct approval. And the prosecutor said that, that Unification Church members or Family Federation members uh, sacrificed a great deal in order to make donations, even, for example, giving up funds that were intended to pay for their children's apartment or children's rent or something like that. And then she took that money and used it to purchase various uh, various accessories and fancy clothing and stuff like that. And so the prosecution was emphasizing the heinousness of the allegations in plural. Um, and she said, "Well, uh, hey, I'm the what do they call it? Mother of peace. I'm the mother of peace, and I've dedicated my life to peace. And if you want to see what I've done, why don't you come to Kapyong and stuff like that?" But I think what she said, if you read it in Korean, it still reeks really of a sense of entitlement, which really does turn people off in Korea. And she, uh, first of all, pleads not guilty, which always upsets the court. The court system here is not exactly neutral, I would say. I think as long as she's claiming to be not guilty, I don't think she's going to get out of jail. I don't think they're going to grant her bail. Yeah, that's my opinion based on what I know about the Korean court system, which is not a lot. I admit. Others know a lot more than I do. But uh, the concept of justice, I think, is anyway. It's different. It's different here, and of course, also in Japan, right? What Japan police have something like the prosecution in Japan has, or the police have something like a 99% conviction rate or something like that. That's and Korea is not quite 99%, but it's pretty close. It's pretty close because people confess, and you can imagine anyone else, in jail for 2.5 months. Um, they might confess just to get themselves out of jail, just sort of to hopefully uh, get on the court's good side and get a bail decision. And the unfortunate reality, I think, is that as long as she keeps this up, as long as she keeps this up, I'm the mother of peace. How dare you treat me this way? This kind of thing. As long as she keeps that up, she's going to stay in jail uh, through the trial, and then she will get a guilty verdict, and she will get um, uh, a sentence that is not suspended. So she'll have to, serve her time in jail. And it is quite possible. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I think there's a very significant probability that she's going to spend the rest of her life in jail. That's that's a probability. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't have a hotline to the judge's office or anything like that, judge's chamber. Um, but she has, for 50 years, for 52 years, she was sort of been up on this pedestal. Um, and unfortunately, she doesn't know how to come down. Father was different. Uh, father was a father was very comfortable being among common people, fishermen, and even gangsters, and others others. And he would humble himself to learn from people. He learned from fishermen. He learned from pretty much anyone who had some special knowledge and was able to teach him something that he wanted to know more about. So he was not really on a pedestal. I wouldn't say he was. I found him very approachable, um, and sometimes, of course, he was harsh. Well, not more than just sometimes. He could be harsh if he witnessed something that was outside the principle. But also, he was very generous, very kind, and very humble. But Jahan is different, isn't she? And it's unfortunate that she is the way that she is. But anyway, this is the reality, and she's, I'm afraid, going to be suffering the consequences of her entitlement and of her, well, arrogance, um, in this way. And perhaps she will repent. Perhaps sleeping on a mat, not a perhaps not a bed, but just sleeping on a mat. Perhaps having to eat whatever she is given, and perhaps not being able to have all that sort of the daily sort of the makeup sessions and the hair sessions and these kinds of things. Perhaps not having all that, being stripped of all that. Perhaps that will guide her to repentance and to humility. I think if we want to pray for her, that would be my prayer for her, that she can repent. And uh, the next problem is, will her handlers allow her to express that repentance in any kind of a public way? Well, yeah. Anyway, we will see. We will see. We will see. John the Baptist, as I mentioned before, he was also imprisoned, and but in the end, or near the end, he didn't repent, but he did ask questions. Right? He sent two of his disciples to Jesus and asked Jesus, "Are you the one who is to come, or shall we wait for another?" So I don't know. Maybe Hak Jahan will begin to question herself in a similar way. Let's pray for her. And she can return. She can return to Father, of course, as a lay member. She can return as a lay member, and then the second king will choose a um, spouse for her. or well, I'm not sure how that will happen, but anyway, there will be another spouse. She will have to be blessed again to a different spouse because father now has been blessed with True Mother Hyun Kang, and True Mother Kang is united with father at the cosmic perfection level, and that is eternal. That's not. She's not a True Mother Kang is not a placeholder. She is the eternal True Mother of humanity. Okay. Yes. Uh, anyway, there is a very important providential situation going on. So that's why I decided to take some time on it today. All right, now, this is a very worrying situation. NATO considering what? Preemptive strike against Russia? You got to be kidding me. Come on. What are you talking about? NATO is weighing a more proactive and aggressive posture in countering Russia's hybrid warfare campaign, potentially including preemptive actions, said Italian Admiral Giuseppe Cavo Dragone. Dragone, NATO's most senior officer and chair of the alliance's military committee, made the remarks in response to myriad attacks at the hands of Russia, including sabotage, cyber attacks, and airspace violations. We are studying everything on cyber. We are kind of reactive, Dragone said. Being more aggressive or being proactive instead of reactive is something that we are thinking about. He added that a preemptive strike could be considered a defensive action, adding that it's further away from our normal way of thinking and behavior. Yeah, it is, isn't it? Preemptive strike could be considered a defensive action. Well, this is what the Japanese said when they attacked Pearl Harbor. No, no, no. This is a defensive action because we know America's going to attack us. This is what they always say. Oh my goodness. I hit him before he hits me because I know he's going to hit me. No, I don't think this is a good idea. Anyway, Russian Foreign Ministry spokesman Maria Zakharova said Dragone's remarks were seen by Moscow as an extremely irresponsible step, indicating the alliance's readiness to continue moving towards escalation. We see it in a deliberate we see in it a deliberate attempt to undermine efforts to overcome the Ukrainian crisis, Zakharova said. So a deliberate attempt to undermine. So the Russia's or this spokesperson is saying NATO is trying to continue the Ukrainian war. They don't want to bring peace to Ukraine. They want to continue the war. It may not be too far off. The people making such statements should be aware of the risks and possible consequences, including for the alliance members themselves. And so, it's kind of a veiled threat there from Russia. And NATO officials point to the alliance's Baltic Sentry mission as a recent success against Russia. Under their operation, ships, aircraft, and naval drones have patrolled the Baltic Sea, preventing a repeat of the cable cutting incidents seen in 23 and 24, attacks widely linked to Russia's Shadow Fleet, which is used to evade Western sanctions. From the beginning of the Baltic Sentry, nothing has happened, so this means that this deterrence is working, Dragone said. Okay, well, if that's what you're going to do, yeah, okay, deterrence, that's okay. Despite Baltic Sentry's success, concerns persist within the alliance after a Finnish court dismissed charges against the crew of the Eagle S, a Shadow Fleet vessel accused of severing several underwater electricity and data cables. The court ruled it lacked jurisdiction because the suspected sabotage occurred in international waters. Finnish Foreign Minister Elina Valtonen said the ruling gives Russian vessels carte blanche in international waters, calling it a problem, but stopped short of saying theirs needs to be more assertive. There's a need to be, I say, okay. So far, I don't think there has been a need for that. We also should take a step back and really analyze what the aggressor is after. She said, then probably we shouldn't be hysterical. We have our own playbook and we should trust it because it is quite robust. Now, I think international law takes care of this kind of situation. In other words, crime is committed in international waters. Um, I think there are international courts that deal with that kind of situation. This article doesn't mention that. Reuters. Is this Reuters? No, no, it's Newsmax own article. Okay. And Germany is saying Russia will attack Europe by 2029. Um, these kinds of predictions um, basically, sort of the crying wolf, uh, basically, saying that the sky is falling. I'm not sure this kind of thing is all that productive. Um, Germany's military and political establishment is quietly preparing for what it now openly warns could be the gravest threat to Europe since the Cold War, a potential Russian attack on NATO by 2029. The assessment revealed in a detailed Wall Street Journal report underscores how profoundly Moscow's 2022 invasion of Ukraine shattered Europe's decades-long confidence and stability and exposed the continent's chronic neglect of defense, which the U.S. successive presidents, especially Republican presidents, have been warning Europe about. And now say, oh, well, we don't have to do that because we know that the U.S. is going to come and defend us whenever there's a problem. Well, no, now you have Trump. 2.5 years ago, a dozen senior German officers, oh man, what's going on? Can't even read. German officers gathered inside Berlin's understated Julius Leber barracks to draft a classified 1,200-page war plan known as Operation Plan Germany. Uh, Today, with Russian aggression escalating, that plan is no longer theoretical. Germany is racing to implement it. At the core of this plan lies a massive logistical blueprint to mobilize up to 800,000 German, US, and NATO troops across Germany toward a potential Eastern Front. With the Alps blocking southern routes, Germany would become the indispensable transit hub for any NATO defense of Europe. The plan outlines everything from ports and railway lines to convoy protection, drone surveillance, fuel stations, and even traffic light modifications. German officials warned that Russia could be ready to strike NATO territory in as little as 5 years, but a wave of sabotage, espionage, and airspace intrusions across Europe suggests Moscow may be preparing sooner. Conservative analysts note that such warnings echo NATO's repeated calls, long dismissed by European leaders, to take the Russian threat seriously. The report highlights Germany's stark vulnerabilities after decades of disarmament. Infrastructure is crumbling. More than 20% of highways and more than a quarter of bridges need repair, and many Cold War era dual use structures have been allowed to decay. Key ports rely on single rail links, leaving them dangerously exposed. A single cargo ship collision this year severed NATO's main rail route for ammunition to Ukraine for weeks, forcing the US to reroute shipments. Exercises to test Germany's readiness have exposed additional flaws. In a September drill in Hamburg, a NATO convoy was stalled for hours because police lacked the materials to remove protesters, highlighting peacetime regulations that make military movements nearly impossible in a crisis. Drone laws are so outdated that German military drones must fly with position lights, defeating their combat purpose. Critics on the right say these failures reflect years of complacency under Berlin's left-leaning governments, which cut defense spending, dismantled conscription, and prioritized environmental projects over national security. Only after Russia's invasion did Germany approve a 100 billion euro rearmament fund, still far below what military leaders say is needed. Defense experts warned that Western hesitation on Ukraine could further embolden Russia. A potential US-backed armistice, analysts note, may simply give Russian President Vladimir Putin time to regroup and shift his attention westward. Still, the architects of the plan insist that visible preparedness remains the strongest deterrent. The goal is to prevent war, one senior official told the journal, by making it clear to our enemies that if they attack us, they won't be successful. Yet, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz delivered a sobering assessment. We're not at war, he said recently, but we no longer live in peacetime. Yes. So Europe, after 80 years, uh, war is coming again, and Europe, of course, has wars going on from time to time. Look at the 19th century, look at the 20th century. 80 years is a very long time of peace for Europe, if you look at their past, even whatever century you choose. They're always at war with each other. Not always, but often. 100 years war, 30 years war, all those wars that we studied in high school, those were all European wars. And then in the 20th century, of course, World War One, World War Two, and then the Cold War sort of froze things in place. But now it's a different situation. Now it's a different situation. But we'll see. I think uh, going around saying that, oh, Russia's going to attack by 2029. We have to attack first before they attack. That's certainly not the way to go. Uh, but of course, being prepared for war, that's uh, certainly an advisable thing, a necessary thing to do. Okay. Let's see. Today in Tennessee, just some domestic news for a moment. There's a special election going on, but it's in the seventh congressional district, which is western part of Nashville, or downtown and western part of Nashville, and also it's in the middle of the state. It's goes from the Kentucky border down south along uh, the western side of Nashville and on south. And this is a congressional district that has been represented by a Republican since 1983. Not just the same Republican, but by the Republican Party since 1983. And the Democrats think they have a chance of taking it this time. And so President Trump has called into the rally for the Republican candidate, Matt Van Epps, and we'll see what happens. So today is the day. So if you have anyone who's living in that seventh congressional district, if you know anyone there, please call them and make sure that they go to the polls. This is going to be a low turnout election. It's because uh, that's how it always happens. And so maybe 20-25% of the people will turn out, I expect. And so a very small minority, a relative small minority of people are going to decide who's going to represent that district. And it's important because the Republicans have a very narrow majority in the House as it is. So if the Democrats flip this seat, that narrow majority is going to become even more narrow and make President Trump's job even more difficult. So let's pray and let's make some phone calls, if we can, to people that we know in the 7th Congressional District of Tennessee, if you know anyone there. Okay. Let's see. Okay. And now um, I have another story on, I guess this is about Venezuela, but a little bit different situation here. Where Venezuela now is sending its cocaine to Europe, together with African jihadists, I guess. Venezuela is sending its cocaine there. Cocaine produced in Venezuela is being shipped to West Africa, which is then trafficking the drug into Europe. According to the Wall Street Journal, the drugs are flown out of Venezuela by corrupt military officials and drug gangs to West Africa, where jihadist linked smugglers move the drug to Europe, according to the journal. Well, it's going to go wherever the demand is and wherever they can uh, transport it most easily and cheaply. It's a business. It's a business. And so there has to be a demand for the product. They may create a demand by getting people hooked, that's true. But basically, one way or another, there has to be a demand for the product, and then they will produce stuff to meet that demand. And Europe as well needs to tackle this on the demand side. Uh, so anyway, The law enforcement officials say that Venezuela has become a strategic location with its ineffectual security and long coastline. While the Trump administration has tried to prevent boats carrying drugs from Venezuela from entering the U.S., most of its cocaine is being sent through Europe via West Africa. All right, well, that's interesting. That more is going to Europe than to the U.S. Once the drug arrives in Africa, smugglers collaborate with Al Qaeda affiliated groups that escort the cargoes north and extort payments from the overland convoys, rebel leaders in Mali told the Journal. From Mali, the drugs cross the Sahara Desert into Algeria, Morocco, and Libya, officials told the Journal. The drugs are then shipped across the Mediterranean Sea to southern Europe. Corruption at ports along Venezuela's coastline allow vessels to be sent to Portugal and Spain, Inside Crime told the Journal. There is now more cocaine seized in Europe than in North America, according to statistics from the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. Spanish police recently detained 13 members of the Venezuelan gang Trinidad, while 2.6 tons of cocaine were seized in Guinea-Bissau after it was flown into the country. And cargo, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And last month, Portuguese police detained a vessel with 1.7 tons of cocaine manned by a Venezuelan crew that had sailed across the mid-Atlantic. Well, so the UN has an office of, what do they call it? Drugs and crime. Do they have an office on family? No, I don't think they do they? Or if they do, then it's not the kind of office that it's not the kind of family that can actually help solve this problem. But the problem here is in the family, and it's not going to be resolved until people wake up and start figuring out ways to strengthen the family structure, the heterosexual two-parent family structure. That's the only, and this is why when we study OSTP at the beginning, there's a whole section on why we study OSTP, right? And the reason is to solve the real problems of the world, problems of the actual problems around the world. And we go into that section, how all social problems, whether it's drugs, crimes, sexual exploitation, prostitution, whatever, these all relate back to the family. And the failure of parents to pass down healthy values to their children. And so this is where we need to attack the problem. Years ago, there was a drug problem, and I think cocaine was also in use. Well, we all know about Coca-Cola, right? How Coca-Cola actually in the beginning actually in the beginning actually did have some cocaine. I think is that an urban myth or is it true? I think it's true that they actually had some cocaine in their product. And even now, by the way, Coca-Cola imports non-addictive part of the poppy, um, and let's see here. This is and it's all legal. It's all legal. Let's see if I can find out. So Google says, what does Google say? Come on. So I asked Google, does Coca-Cola have cocaine? And the answer, no, modern Coca-Cola does not contain cocaine. Modern Coca-Cola right? The original formula from 1886 included cocaine from coca leaves, but this was removed around 1903. Today, Coca Cola uses a cocaine free coca leaf extract. Cocaine free coca leaf extract in its formula. Sounds very suspicious. Anyway, after the company stopped using fresh coca leaves and later began using, quote, spent, unquote, leaves from which the cocaine had already been extracted. So in Venezuela, I guess, or other places where they produce cocaine, right, they get the cocaine and somehow I guess there's a part of the leaf that gets thrown away after they've, but this sounds to me like Coca-Cola is still complicit in the production of cocaine because they're basically subsidizing or at least supporting the producers of cocaine, right? Because they're buying what they call spent, uh, quote, spent, unquote, leaves, coca leaves. And they say, well, the cocaine has already been extracted. Yes, okay, but you're still giving money to those folks. Coca-Cola was developed in 1886 with cocaine from coca leaves and caffeine from cola nuts. The cocaine was removed from the formula in 1903. Modern formula, today's version, uses a cocaine-free coca leaf extract. Sounds to me that they're complicit. Yeah. Yep. Anyways. Oh, and by the way, Santa Claus. I spent about 6 months. How I got there is a bit of a story, but I spent 6 months working for a company, a public relations company, and one of the clients was Coca-Cola. Of course, they have their own in-house, but they had some stuff that they also wanted to do with this outside agency. And what I learned during that 6 months was that Santa Claus, as we know him today, and maybe many even know this, Santa Claus, as we know of him today, was actually, shall I say, invented or developed by the Coca-Cola company. And the reason it did this is because, they had this drink which was selling, like, well, it was doing very well in the summertime, but people were not buying it in the wintertime. And so they said, how can we get people to drink Coca-Cola in the wintertime? And so one of the things they came up with, and this was the early 20th century, one of the things they came up with was, to develop Santa Claus. And this Santa Claus, with the big stomach and the red suit and the white beard, and ho ho ho. This is all Coca-Cola stuff. Uh, anyway, just as an aside, okay, just as an aside. So Coca-Cola, Warren Buffett made a lot of money off of them, uh, but they have a storied history, I would say. Uh, anyway, so you still going to drink Coke? What can I say? If I tell you all that, you still drink the stuff, then it's on you. It's on you, all right? Okay. All right, let's move ahead. We move on here. Move on. Let's see here. Let's look at the headlines on Newsmax this morning. Um, and by the way, I said this once, I think a few days ago, but I want to say it again. During this time, don't be lonely. We have all these songs, jingle bells, and it's the most wonderful time of the year, and all that kind of stuff. But for people who don't have family, people who don't have immediate sort of a community, it can be an extremely difficult time, an extremely depressing time. And so I'm just asking you, Don't be lonely. Don't allow yourself to become isolated and lonely during this time. Seek out community. You have all these churches whose signboards say everyone welcome, right? Well, take advantage of that. Go in there, say, hey, here I am. You said everyone's welcome, so here I am. And don't worry if it's a church that believes that the apple was literal or the fruit was literal. Don't worry about that. Just for the time of the Christmas time, just make sure you're not lonely. Okay. All right. So Putin spurns Maduro, urges Russians to leave Venezuela. Yes, as I said, so he wants to sit on the sidelines for this one. And okay, no emerges travel ban for foreign entitlement junkies. Who are the foreign entitlement junkies? Every country that's been flooding our nation with killers, leeches, and entitlement junkies. Not for foreign invaders to slaughter our heroes, suck dry our hard-earned tax dollars. Okay, so all right. So yes, but in the 19th century, a lot of uh, a lot of people came over from Europe, and they were not all good. Watch the movie. What is it? The Gangs of New York. Oh, good. There were some entitlement junkies back then too. Anyway, and America survived that, so we'll see anyway. So okay, let's see here. Administration works to bolster rare earth supply chains. Okay, good for them. Right. Okay, I don't see anything. Oh, Melania, the Christmas decorations in the White House. This is always a topic. Um, David remarks at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland during a Red Cross Christmas care package event, urging Americans to recognize not only the sacrifices of U.S. service members, but also the quiet strength of the families who support them. Okay, well, good for her. She really is a wonderful first lady, and she's not receiving the respect that she deserves or the attention that she deserves by the leftist media. In fact, they consider her to be of course, someone who's betraying the cause of feminism. I think is how they see her. I think history will treat her very kindly. Um, Trump Syria shift opens door to Mideast peace. How did that come about? I think someone's going to have to write a book on that or produce a movie on that. Just how did that? How did Assad uh, collapse like that? And they're using the shooting in Washington of the two National Guardsmen as an excuse to say that immigrants need to be vetted more carefully. But as I mentioned, this guy worked with the CIA, with an actual um, what is it, a squad or a group of soldiers uh, trained by the CIA and that were working with the CIA in Afghanistan. So if he'd been vetted, he still would have been allowed to come. I don't see how they would have kept him from coming. Now, what they're saying now is that he was radicalized after arriving in the United States. And vetting someone before they come to the United States is not going to prevent that. So I think this using this as an excuse to call for more vetting is kind of like the left using uh, every shooting as an excuse to call for taking guns away from good people. It doesn't really make sense to me. Uh, and by the way, the among between the two people who were shot, of course, the young lady passed away. 20-year-old joined the National Guard right out of high school and was 20, and she passed away. But the other guy, apparently now he's responsive now. He's 24 years old, and he's improving. So that's fortunate. It looks like maybe potentially he's going to live. I don't know what kind of life he's going to have, but it looks like potentially he's going to live at least, and that's good news. Okay. Okay. All right, let's go to Breitbart. I don't see a whole lot of stuff on Newsmax. Let me just check a little bit. Hold it down a little bit further. All right. Mm, fraud in Minnesota. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's go to Breitbart. Breitbart these days really doesn't do a very good job of providing stories. But anyway, let's take a look at what they're talking about. All right. Here. Okay. Um, this New York Times writer explains how chain migration is used to wage race war to beat white Americans. Mm, the Department of Homeland Security says New York City is harboring 7,169 criminal illegal aliens. Hmm. It's a Virginia football coach is still missing. He might not be alive. He may have taken his own life. Mm. Says that Biden's disaster. Is this also the uh, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Levitt said Monday that former Biden President Biden's botched withdrawal from Afghanistan continues to have terrible consequences for the U.S. following the killing of one National Guard member and the severe wounding of another. See, Trump was going to withdraw also. It is true that Biden really botched it, and there were several uh, servicemen were killed in the bomb attack during the withdrawal. But if you just focus on this guy, the shooter, or the alleged shooter of the two people, um, if President Trump had done the withdrawal, would he have been excluded from coming to the U.S.? I don't think so, because the policy was, hey, we have these guys, people, translators, and also these people who've been working with the CIA. They've been working with us, and we need to take care of them. We need to take responsibility for them, and that was a very uh, righteous thing to do. That's a righteous thing, and I think President Trump would have also allowed this guy in. Now, being radicalized after he came to the U.S. That is the issue here, and people are not addressing that. They're just saying that, oh, Biden let him in, but he would have come in anyway, even if he had been vetted, even if President Trump were in the White House. I think he would have come into the U.S. anyway. So they're exploiting this situation, and that's the way politics works. I understand, but we need to be aware of that. This is what's happening here. Okay. All right, let's see. I got 1 minute left. What else do we got here? Okay. Trump is healthy. That's good. Nativity display at left-wing church includes zip-tied baby Jesus, Roman soldiers as ICE agents. Well, okay, well that's what they do. That's what they do. Yeah. Uh, Sanctuary State, Oregon, illegal alien truck driver accused of killing two Americans in crash. And Portland's tree lighting ceremony avoids saying Christmas. Yes. Well, I'll tell you, Marine Airlines has gone back to saying "ladies and gentlemen" in their announcements during the flight, and I'm just glad for that because for a while they were not saying "ladies and gentlemen"; they were saying "everyone, everyone, fasten your seatbelt." Everyone. We're going to do a safety demonstration, but now it's "ladies and gentlemen." So I'm just grateful for that. It was very awkward. Yeah, everyone was very awkward. All right, got to go. Tomorrow's Wednesday. I'll do an OSTP thing tomorrow, and so I'll see you then. God bless, Godspeed. May His kingdom come quickly.